My name is Swadesh Gupta. My EDX username is Swadesh Gupta, and my GitHub username is Swadesh Gupta. Today is July 1st, 2025, and I'm recording this presentation for my CS50 cybersecurity project. I selected the critical open VSX registry vulnerability as my topic because it perfectly demonstrates how even developer tools themselves can become attack vectors, highlighting the critical importance of securing every link in the software supply chain. Let me start by explaining what the Open VSX registry is. It's an open source alternative to Microsoft's Visual Studio Marketplace, maintained by the Eclipse Foundation. This registry serves as a vendor neutral platform for VS Code extensions and is integrated into multiple code editors, including Cursor, Windsurf, Google Cloud Shell Editor, and Gitpod. The widespread adoption of OpenVSX means that a compromise would affect millions of developers worldwide, making it a prime target for supply chain attacks. In June 2025, cybersecurity researchers disclosed a critical vulnerability in the OpenVSX registry's publish extensions repository. The vulnerability was rooted in a GitHub Actions workflow that exposed a privileged token called OVSXPAT. This token had the power to publish or overwrite any extension in the marketplace. The attack vector was simple, yet devastating. A malicious extension could capture this token during the npm install process and use it to compromise the entire registry. Interestingly, this vulnerability was discovered just months after MITRE added IDE extensions as a new technique in its ATT and CK framework, recognizing the growing threat of extension based attacks. Let me walk you through the technical details of how this vulnerability worked. The process started when developers submitted pull requests to add their extensions to the extensions.json file. Once approved, a GitHub Actions workflow would run daily at 3:03 a.m. Coordinated Universal Time. The critical flaw was that, during the npm install process, the workflow exposed the OVSXPAT environment variable to all extension build scripts and their dependencies. This meant that any malicious code hidden in an extension or its dependencies could access this token and gain full control over the registry. The vulnerability essentially violated the principle of least privilege by giving untrusted code access to highly privileged credentials. The potential impact of this vulnerability was enormous. An attacker could have gained complete control over the entire extensions marketplace, affecting millions of developer machines. They could publish new malicious extensions, modify existing ones to insert backdoors, or gain persistent access to development environments. This represents a classic supply chain attack scenario, where compromising one central component, the registry, could cascade to affect countless downstream users. The risk was particularly high, because extensions often have privileged access to development environments in sensitive codebases. The timeline of this vulnerability shows a responsible disclosure process. It was discovered and reported on May 4, 2025. The maintainers worked through multiple rounds of fixes over the following weeks, finally deploying the complete fix on June 25, 2025. The vulnerability was publicly disclosed the next day. This 52-day response time demonstrates good security practices, with no known exploits occurring in the wild before the patch was deployed. This vulnerability teaches us several critical security principles. First, the principle of least privilege. The workflow had far more permissions than necessary. Second, environment variable security. Sensitive tokens should never be accessible to untrusted code during build processes. Third, supply chain security. We must recognize that extensions and their dependencies represent significant supply chain risks. Finally, CI/CD pipeline security. GitHub Actions workflows handling sensitive credentials need careful security review and proper isolation. Based on this analysis, I recommend several protective measures. Organizations should regularly audit their extension usage and remove unnecessary or suspicious extensions. Implement sandboxing to run extensions in isolated environments with limited permissions. Monitor extension behavior for suspicious activities like unexpected network connections. Consider implementing policies to review extension updates before deployment in critical environments. Most importantly, secure your CI/CD pipelines by following the principle of least privilege and implementing proper credential isolation. The implementation approach should be systematic. Assess current security posture, develop policies, implement technical controls, and maintain continuous monitoring and improvement. In conclusion, the Open VSX registry vulnerability demonstrates that even developer tools can be vectors for supply chain attacks. It reinforces the importance of securing CI/CD pipelines, properly managing environment variables, and recognizing extensions as a growing attack surface. As development environments become more complex, we must adopt a proactive approach to extension security and supply chain protection. Every component in our development tool chain deserves the same security scrutiny as our production systems. Thank you for your attention. This presentation highlights why cybersecurity must be built into every aspect of our development processes, not just our final products.